powerful fear freedom, but even more, they fear the free. Their fear manifests first as anger, then insults, and finally violence, thus masking their obsession with control, which in turn hides their hopelessness and their greatest fear of helplessness. They are emotional cripples, souls sucked dry, emotionally emaciated in their towers of power and seventh floors of Satan. So they cover their cowardness by crippling all those around them. So anything pure is putrefied, anyone good is corrupted. Freedom is never given because it cannot be. For what is given is not earned. What is earned, it cannot be bought. And what is not bought cannot be sold. What is earned can never be taken. Freedom is earned, fought and killed and died for, paid in blood debt that slaves never know. Spartacus savored it, Turner took it, but Yeshua perfected it because his freedom is forever. Welcome, everybody. This is the Prather Point. I'm Jeff Prather, former special agent with the DEA, ex-DIA intelligence officer, and retired SOCOM special operations soldier, military intelligence branch. And this is the Prather Point. Really good show today. Special guest I'm really excited to have. But before we get there, please go to beready123.com, beready123.com. I'm usually talking about the Iridium 9555 phones that you can get there, which, are a bit expensive, but they got some other great, cool things like these EMF pouches, which has an outer pouch that you can just put, you can slip anything into there. But then the inner pouch here, the bigger pouch, is the one that is EMF. And it has this great magnet, so you don't have to work with the Velcro anymore, which is, a little more bulky and a little more time consuming. So I really like these new ones that just flip like that and work so well. Got a lot of other cool things like this. Getting all my cords caught up here. This little pouch. You could put a weapon in here, lots of compartments, but again, you can see in there. But there are also EMF compartments and compartments for all your cords as well. Very, very handy. A fanny pack, same thing, works really well. Additionally, and has, again, the EMF compartments. And then really for your go bag, you should definitely have a dry bag. And this is a dry bag. If you haven't used one, you haven't done any water ops like I have, but everything gets wet, whether you're putting it in the water with you, but in the boat. And so not only is this a dry bag, but it's entirely EMF in there as well. So lots of cool things just besides the Iridium 9555 and the cool beanie that I'm always talking about there that you can get at beready123.com. And you can also use the code Prather for 10% off as well. So beready123.com is a great opportunity and source for everybody. So what we got going on today is Anomalies analyzed with Vandersteel. Looking forward to having her on. But also, please like, share, and subscribe. That really helps my membership. Like, share, and subscribe on Rumble, on X. I'm even on YouTube, although I will shortly have a new channel there on Facebook. But please do that. And also, you can join me this Sunday at ChristChaplaincy.com, where I will be giving the sermon. And if you go to ChristChaplaincy.com, you can see all my other sermons. And you can also figure out how to tune in. We're not on YouTube there. We're on GoTo. And with GoTo, you can actually talk to us. If you watch us on Meta, on Facebook, you can chat with us. But on GoTo, you can actually talk with us because we always want to have a conversation. Give me some of that. Does the beanie come in camo? No, it does not. Sorry about that. It does not come in camo. But what we're going to be talking today with my special guest, an old friend, Ann Vandersteel, is cryptic codes, bees, kings, and flags. Trump's Iran economic war plan seems to be working. And DOJ indicts Sinaloa governor as NARCOS. An ex-MOSSAD boss says that Israel is holocausting Palestinians. All that is very important, and especially to help sort me out on all of this is my old friend and longtime Liberty luminary, Ann Vandersteel. And welcome to the Prather Point. So glad to have you back.
Jeffrey, I'm glad to be back. Sorry, I thought I was coming on a half hour in. So if I'm early, I apologize. If I'm late, I apologize. But I'm here and I'm excited to be here. I'm just trying to keep my day going. It's coming at me really fast today.
No, I know. I'm getting senile. I just turned 69. I forgot to send you the StreamYard link. My apologies. But usually I have my guests come on at 1:15 and sometimes 1:30. But I want to have you on from the beginning because I need your help with all this stuff that's going on. So The first thing I want to get into, and so I got a lot of questions to ask you. So the first thing is this bees, kings, and flag stuff, talking about the fringe. So I know, I sent you a X to look at, and I know because you got me into the American State National Movement that we were illegally enrolled in the corporate system of America at birth, with the birth certificate, all capital letters, with the driver's license. And you and I have both gotten out of that system, even though we've both been targeted. But sum that up before we go to the next thing, because I think you can say it better than I. So please add to what I was saying there.
Sure. So, I mean, for those that aren't familiar, and I think by now we've been talking about this for almost, 8 years or so, the entire system in which we believe we are living in has been a fraud. It has been so that they can monetize us, Jeffrey. They can turn us into chattel. We become a thing that they can use as collateral. Our work, our labor is collateral for the money that they print. And that system, essentially under Woodrow Wilson, when they created the Federal Reserve, and actually goes before that too, when they gave us birth certificates. So the entire system is built on monetizing who we are, what we do, and literally creating bonds that are traded on the open market. I mean, just for instance, you get a traffic ticket and you go to court, that creates a bond and a CUSIP number, and that is traded on the open market. And you can find these bonds that are created based on your interaction with the legal system and the judicial system. You can actually find them. People do. And so you would be surprised at how much money you're worth on the open traded market if you actually looked up your social security number, your driver's license number, your passport, whatever it is, any sort of legal entity they've created for you, legal number, legal identification number, I should say, has been monetized. And people are worth millions of dollars, but it's not for us to access, it's for others. It's for them to.
And that's because the courts have ruled that corporations are fictional persons. And
Correct.
So when you see capital letters, we are part of a corporation. We're this part of the state corporation because on the birth certificate it's capital letters, and on the passport and everything is capital letters. So we're part of the federal corporation.
Correct.
And so there's a legal way to get out. You can't just say, I break the contract, I'm out. And then, we talked about this, not roll down your window for a law enforcement officer who's pulling you over. You're going to get shot. The cop doesn't know about that, but there is a legal procedure to notify the federal government that you now understand that you were illegally, without your knowing, enrolled in all of this, and you want to leave it. And you have to go through these steps.
And that's a fraud. So Throckmorton versus United States, 1878, fraud vitiates everything. Or I should say United States versus Throckmorton. I reversed that, excuse me. Fraud vitiates everything. So there was a fraud committed when your mother gave birth to you, Jeffrey. She's excited. Your father's there. There's, a little different story for you, but you know what I mean. In general, when the baby's born, I know your story is different. When the baby is born, Jeffrey, the parents are excited typically, and they get handed a bunch of paperwork. Sign this. You're going to get your social security number, get your birth certificate, all this stuff. Parents just think that's normal and they sign it. But the fraud is that there was no informed consent about what they were signing, and that's fraud. Just like the COVID shots, no informed consent. That was fraud upon people, murderously fraud, by the way, in some instances. So fraud initiates everything. And as we find out that we didn't have to enter in contract with a system that is going to rob us blind, aka taxes, et cetera. You get taxed on everything in this system. You can now inform the system, I recognize what you did. It was without my consent, and I want out. And so that's what I've done. That's what you've done. That's what millions of people have done. So much so, some people are not even declaring themselves out of the US system. They're just getting out of the US tax club, and they're stopping filing because that's another fraud, in the sense that it's a voluntary maneuver to go in and offer the government, hey, I made 100 grand last year. I'm going to give you 25 of it. That's voluntary. Nobody's putting a gun to your head to do that. You think they are, but they're not. It's all voluntary. So this is the fraud we're talking about.
Yeah, and people are saying in the chat, unbelievable, this is news to me. Well, okay, so if you've never heard of it, that's why we're explaining it before we go on. But this is the American State Nationals process, and you need to understand it and then execute it slowly and methodically by the stages. You can't just say, I'm out.
Right.
You'll go to jail.
Right.
And you can't just, the next time a cop pulls you over, say, I don't need a driver's license, like that one poor kid didn't want, roll down, and they said he went for a weapon. They shot him. We talked about that. But there's a procedure. Is there a source for correcting our own paperwork, Jeff? Yes. So, Ann, what do you recommend? I've actually had my guy on, but whom do you recommend?
Well, that's that is a moving discussion, because I've spoken to a lot of people recently. In fact, Payman Manahedu and Joe Bannister from the IRS, formerly with the IRS, who are now actively educating people. You don't need to file income taxes. If you filed, you got to pay. But once you're done with that, don't ever file again, is essentially what they say. And what they've got, the literature sitting on my desk, and I'm a non-filer myself, and I don't get harassed. But the paperwork that you can do, if you want to actually do some sort of formal notification to the federal government, to the crown system, essentially, to let them know you are no longer recognizing the U.S. status, and you want to just go with the status of that of a national, which everybody in America is. If you are legally here in America, you are considered an American national. It's that extra layer called U.S. citizen that invokes privileges. Your rights are bestowed by God. They're protected by the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And when you exchange those rights for the U.S. citizenship, you're now exchanging your God-given rights for the privilege of being a citizen. And that privilege comes at a cost, including filing income tax. And then, of course, the privilege of getting welfare if you qualify, or student loans, or whatever. It's a contract, essentially. And you don't have to contract in.
Right. It's a contract your various contracts that you were enrolled in without your knowledge, as you said. Correct. At the beginning. But do you have any sources right now?
I do. I use it. There's an organization out there called nationalstatus.info. Nationalstatus.info. They are fantastic. They have a great website. They've got a lot of explainer videos on there. There's no money associated with any of this. This is just free information to give to you. They have done a great job of aggregating a lot of information that has been out there and making sense of the madness. But, if you speak with Payman over at freedomlawschool.org, they've got a great system to get out of paying taxes. They'll walk you through it. If you're currently in a tax crisis and the IRS is on your ass, they'll represent you. And there's another organization called Weiss Paris, phenomenal organization for people who want to get deeper into setting up trusts and really sort of getting out of the U.S. jurisdiction, because, that's the whole thing. Once you're a U.S. citizen, you're in the U.S. jurisdiction, and you've got to play by their rules. You're contracting into it.
Yes, and there's lots of tricks that they use, like they send you forms. Well, if you're using their forms, then you're implicitly acknowledging the system.
The right.
So you don't want to respond in there to their. You got to respond to certain stuff, but you should not use their forms for. So there's two ways to do it. You can learn how to do it yourself, or you can have somebody, an attorney, who is knowledgeable in this.
I wouldn't recommend an attorney, because you're in their system with an attorney. I would talk to.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't practice law, but he does have a law degree. But you're correct. But somebody, an expert, to also help you. Because that's what I did, because I dropped out of law school after 1 year when I came to my sentences. And then also we call them up when we have a question as well.
Right.
So you did it by yourself, or did
Yeah.
you have
Well,
guidance?
I knew some people and we walked through. I really wanted to comprehend what it was I was doing and how I was interacting, removing myself out of the system. I needed to comprehend what this meant. And there was a lot of, it was probably 12, 15 different pieces of paper I filled and sent out. But a lot of it was literally notifying the government using their postal system, the US Post Office, register, return receipt. So
Yes.
whatever I sent them, I signed myself. I had it notarized. I put my thumbprint on there to make sure it was totally identified as me. And I requested that I returned receipts. So I got it. I knew who signed it and when they signed it. And that was the notification for, as an affidavit, for instance, 21 days from that signed date, return receipt card. I knew they'd received it. It was now not rebutted. They didn't contest anything I sent. And therefore that was their tacit acceptance that, yes, I'm no longer a US citizen. I'm out of that club and I'm now an American national. I took my package after everything was done. I filed it in the local county clerk recorder's office. I got a recorded stamp there. So it was recorded. It's public now. And then I took that package and I took it to the US Passport Service. And everybody's passport recognizes either a citizen/national. Open up your passport book, look on the first page where they have fine print and it will recognize citizen or national. And I said, I am now a national. I want to reestablish my passport as a national. And that was it. That was it. And oddly enough, 180 days after I finished that process is when the Quad S Quiet Skies list discharged me out of the federal government system, and the harassment stopped when I was flying.
Yeah, because they were pulling you off of aircraft and everything. We've talked about that.
Ridiculous. Oh yeah, I was treated like a criminal, like a domestic terrorist, really. And I flew every week somewhere. I was 4 to 6 flights a week. That it was just every single flight. There was TSA at the gates, changing planes, pulling me off planes. It was a nightmare.
So having established the individual getting out of the corporate system, what I'm seeing is, the king and queen were just over here, and yep. There are people talking about admiralty law ending, because when you sign in blue ink, it refers to law of the sea, and that's the original law because you're in the water of the womb, and of course how because of the original colonists were coming over here from Britain, there was implicit contracts. Let me see. I want to say this correctly. The British Crown governed America through admiralty law. And so now some people are saying that is ending. And that was the significance of the king and queen's visit. And that's why, and there are a whole bunch of little anomalies that I want to talk about. Like the American flag was waving. It did not have the fringe on it anymore. And then the British flag was not moving. The bees landing on Trump with the honey there, with the honey pot. There, a lot of people are saying that this is with the 250th anniversary, this is the end of that contract. And, I don't see them following any constitutional law. So for me, it's kind of hard to believe all of this, but they're saying the Virginia Company created by the King of England. And of course, Virginia became a royal colony under direct control. And 250 years later, when America publicly declared its independence, the underlying corporate structure was quietly reestablished. A lot of people talk about that. I don't talk about it too much because DOJ, the Supreme Court, nobody's following the Constitution. But I wanted to get your take on this because, as I see it, what we just talked about was the individual getting out of the system. And now there are people claiming that President Trump is getting us out of that system as well, or the admiralty system, the British control. So I really want to hear your take on that.
Well, listen, if I was to look at it through the lens, let's put a pause on this post right here. I think you should put it up on the screen so the folks can see it, or at least put the link in the show notes. But I look at this in the real world context of what have we been going through with this war with Iran, right? We got bullied into it by Israel. And I'm sorry if I just blew up your YouTube account by saying that. But we got bullied into it. And in fact, Marco Rubio said it. So I want to contextualize that for the censorships models out there listening to this. He said that, we went first because Israel was going to, and they wanted to, establish some sort of dominance. But this war is drug on now. And it's on again, off again. We have the Strait open. We don't have it open. But what is it doing? We just seized a bunch of money from Iran, $340 billion in crypto. And we were able to do that using the same beast system, but it's under the guise of the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, right? Crypto is tied directly. The stable coins are essentially one-to-one, whether it's backed by a treasury or some kind of financial instrument. And because they were using these instruments that are tied into our still beast system, we were able to seize it. So I don't know necessarily if this special relationship with England has been dissolved fully yet, because the pain that is being inflicted on England with the war in Ukraine, when I say England, I mean the city of London, the banking cabal, the 1 square mile, that's its own, own sovereign state. It's not part of the UK. It's sovereign to itself. That banking cabal is what has been pushing us into the war in Ukraine. It has been, furthering our need to, and using the APAC money lobby and other lobbies to get our own Senate and House to afford and fund, not afford, but fund all the weapons that we've been sending over to Ukraine, the money we've sent over there, et cetera. Same thing with this war in Iran, the military industrial complex tied back to the city of London. Same thing, the bankers' wars. Are we breaking it? Well, the only way we're going to break the bank is if we break the Fed and we break the dollar. But we can't do that without having our own currency stood up. And right now, we don't have our own solid money. We're not on a gold-backed system. And we all thought crypto was going to be the answer. Unfortunately, crypto is now tied into the beast system with the Clarity and the Genius Act. So you have now, getting everything reported, it's using the on and off rails to the banking system, to the Federal Reserve System, FedNow, et cetera, for this instantaneous money transfer. We haven't fully separated. But if you look at it in terms of how much debt we're accumulating and the fact that we really don't have a way to pay that back, that is going to bankrupt these city of London, because they aren't able to collateralize the Ukraine. They aren't able to collateralize Iran. They're losing their grip on the oil. They're losing their grip on the trade routes that Iran represents, so that it is ultimately banking. It's sort of like we're playing a double-edged. We've got a sword with two edges, cutting them, cutting us, to cut us, or to actually, we're hurting ourselves a bit right now with inflation. But hopefully it's going to sever that tie back into the Federal Reserve central banking cabal, all again coming out of the Bank of International Settlements and the City of London. So we're having to go through the pain of separation, and to see the King and the Queen in Washington, D.C., I see the elements in which are talking about the flag without fringe, et cetera. And that signals definite, independence, right? We're no longer at war with them, but have we fully separated, and are we fully standing on our own 2 feet yet? Not from where I'm sitting. We've got another Fed, Jerome Powell didn't step down. He's now on the board, right? We have a new Fed chair, but Jerome's still on the board. We're not lowering interest rates, not for what Trump wants. And we've got a lot of debt we've got to finance here. So how they're going to move through this, it's still very unknown to me. It just seems that we're dying a slow death. And it's painful for us, but it's to try and separate out of this financial system. The one they're using right now is still part of the financial system. It's crypto, and it's basically been hijacked by the central bank. So until we go to gold, we're not totally done with this, Jeffrey. I just don't see it.
Well, and Trump stopped talking about gold and opening Fort Knox. So these people who talk about, there's a whole bunch of people who talk about all these symbols and how this is happening. Is I don't see it really happening, and what you're saying is you don't really see it happening fully, at least.
No, because we haven't separated. It's always going to come back to the financial system. And yes, it's about saving children. It's about a lot of things that are under attack here. Children are currency to the beast system, and they always have been. So until we're in control of the financial system, and it's sovereign, it's true sovereign money, it's not connected back to this beast system, we're not free. We're just not free.
Yeah, I was just quoting the Spartacus, the Howard Fast Spartacus novel that the Kirk Douglas movie is based upon, where he's talking about you breed our women as to have children as cattle, as chattel that you sell. And it hasn't really changed. We're exposing it more. But so explain. Well, here's 3 questions, and take your time. So explain the Genius Act, please. Explain the significance of the fringe on the flag. So I know on state coffins, caskets, if the flag is wrinkled, it means he was not an honorable president. If the flag is pressed, I know that one. I'm familiar with some of the fringe stuff, but I'd like to hear what you think and the Fringe Act. And then lastly, whether you think that President Trump is consciously doing this or he's just going along with it, because it looks to me like he's going along with it, that he's making a lot of money through Kushner and Witkoff, genociding Gaza to redo it. But those are 3 in-depth questions I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Okay, so let's start. You wanted to start with the Genius Act, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the Genius Act, it doesn't make, so we've set up stable coins, right? It doesn't make the stable coins literally part of the Federal Reserve, but what it does, it functionally plugs them into the same control architecture as the Fed and the way the Fed system operates. So Fed controls base money, which is the reserve dollar system and liquidity. It's the Treasury, which controls the enforcement aspect, like the anti-money laundering and sanctions, et cetera, which is what happened with Iran, and the banking system, which distributes the money under their own rules. So the Genius Act inserts basically stable coin as a sexy wrapper directly into that triangle. And again, I told you the stable coins have to be backed 1-to-1 with safe assets. What are safe assets? You've got U.S. Treasury, you've got bank deposits, and you've got money, cash. These all live inside this Fed-controlled system, which is again the beast international banking cabal system. So even if a stablecoin issuer is private, it's basically backing. It's backed by the regulations of the Fed. It's dependent on Treasury markets, which of course the Fed always backstops. Remember, the Fed will buy back Treasuries, and it's also subject to any sort of liquidity that is shaped by the Fed. So how banking integration works with this, if you're going to operate under the Genius Act, you've got to partner with regulated banks. Again, going back to the Fed, you've got to have these custody relationships, and you've got to be totally compliant. So these banks have to be members of the Federal Reserve System, or they have to sort of ride alongside it. And if the Fed decides to just make their lives miserable and kind of tighten the access, the stable coins are going to choke also. So what's the compliance layer in all this? It's really the Fed and the Treasury coordinating together. You've got the know your customer, the anti-money laundering, you've got sanctions, and you've got their ability to monitor transactions. All this flows basically through the Treasury, and it's also like we now know everything is data. They share your data. So every stablecoin transaction basically becomes visible and governable inside the same enforcement grid that governs banks. What's the problem with this, Jeffrey? And stop me if you have questions. The problem is this doesn't mean that the Genius Act makes everything programmable, but once the money is now digital and you give it permission, right? And it's issued through these regulated banking entities and it connects to an identity, then it's a programmable by policy. So in other words, if you have wallets, they can freeze your wallets, they can block your transactions, they can make any of your usage restricted, and they can also redirect your funds. So doesn't that sound like a lot like CBDC? Wasn't that like the core?
Yeah, it sounds like CBDC with another name.
They just the private issuers. That's all they did. So this is a huge problem, and I think people need to sort of digest that because so many people rush to buy Bitcoin and XRP and all this stuff. I bought a little XRP. I think I still have it. I don't even pay attention to it. It wasn't worth me worrying about it. But you did all this, and now it's boom. It's using the same rails, and if you want to get off ramps or on ramps into it, you've got to go through the same traps that are tracking and tracing your money, and that's the Federal Reserve System. So it's a problem. It's a problem. You're not decentralized the way you think you are.
Okay, so that's a great answer to the first question. The Genius Act. How about the next one?
Do you want to know about the the Clarity Act, or I can't remember what the next one.
Well, the
Clarity kind of connects to it. And
well, if you think that's important, but
I do. Let me just, I'll make it very short. This is what Clarity really does to crypto. Clarity is, on the surface level, the Clarity Act was basically sold as the SEC can no longer be involved in your business. And it basically is giving rules back to the industry, making the United States very competitive. But it standardizes crypto so it can be fully integrated into the existing financial control system, which means it's reclassifying crypto that the CFTC now is overseeing crypto versus the SEC. There was a huge fight, and that was all over XRP. And this matters because crypto always existed in the gray zone, Jeffrey. You couldn't regulate it. It was harder to track. But this the innovation of crypto basically was staying ahead of enforcement. But now with Clarity, they basically have pulled everything under their power again, and it shifted that oversight from the FEC to the CFTC. But it now has the SEC enforcing cryptos like a securities law. And that means it can be managed. It's not an independent system. And the Treasury and the IRS are fully engaged because the data of your transaction is now flowing between the Treasury and the IRS. So you are now locked into the tax system because the Clarity Act made it so. Jeffrey? Jeffrey? I lost you. Uh-oh. Jeffrey? I lost Jeffrey, I think. Yeah, apparently I lost Jeffrey. All right, so I'm in control of the show. Oh my God. Poor Jeffrey, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to him. Let me see if I can follow him over here. He probably had the same problem I did earlier today. I lost my internet. Sorry, guys. I know we're live. I don't see him trying to text me. I'm just checking to see if he's trying to text me or not. Well, anyway, I'll just keep going until he pops back in. Hopefully he will. I have no idea. It's funny. This has been a funny day with internet. I'm supposed to be on Redacted show in a little while. I hope we don't have the same problems. But anyway, where I was leaving off with Clarity is the on and off ramps, which would be connecting your crypto back and forth into the banking system. That's the trap. And Clarity, unlike Genius, it doesn't actually need to ban wallets. It actually regulates them. So it's regulating the exchanges, it's regulating the brokers, it's regulating custodians, and I guess people, the money providers. So that's the difference where, when fiat money, your green stuff wants to go into crypto, and that to make crypto spendable. And if you want to use it, you got to be compliant on all these platforms. Again, they are looking for anti-money laundering, know your customer, the compliance there. But while they're in order to be compliant, platforms must also be able to surveil you, report all your transactions to Treasury and the IRS, and they have to enforce any restrictions. So Genius kind of can layer in the sort of ESG stuff if they don't like you. And really, one person can just flip a switch and you're done. You're cut off. So you're controlling the gateways and you're controlling the system, which is pretty, I don't know if Jeffrey's calling me or not. It's pretty intense. And so I feel pretty badly for the people who, jumped in both feet forward, jumping into this system, thinking they were going to be escaping the beast system. But the beast found a way to corral them all. And that's why that SEC lawsuit was so incredibly important with XRP. Because while we were all cheering for the fact that XRP was going to be finally released and that would take off and make tons of money, I know a lot of people were following that. I think that's when I bought a few shekels of XRP just to kind of see what would happen. Then you have a Genius and Clarity. And this would, the other big tell is when do you ever see Congress, basically the Republicans and the Democrats, really the Uniparty, but all jump on together and not have these sort of fake fights, kayfabes out there. Everybody unanimously, pretty much, not unanimously, but almost unanimously supported Clarity and Genius. That to me is a huge tell that something's wrong with all of this. So you've got a system now that can map all your wallet identities. Hey, Jeffrey, I'm just still carrying on the show here.
No, I'm glad. This happened. This is happening more and more frequently. Everything flickered and then you went off. So they really don't like this. I've got lots of systems and security. So this is really important. So I'm glad you're carrying on. Please Go ahead.
Well, I'll just finish my thought here. I was just explaining why they're still trapped in the B system, because you've now got full transaction visibility. So this new system under Clarity, it can map your wallet identities, which is you. It's going to trace everything you do across the platforms. Anything they don't like, they're going to go, shame on you. And if they really don't like you, they're going to enforce the compliance, because they share all your data with the IRS, with FinCEN, Treasury, and the CFTC, which means crypto becomes transparent to the state, even if the blockchain itself is public by design. So it's a sham show, Jeffrey. They've kettled the fish again by making it look like crypto was this special thing outside the U.S. jurisdiction. All they did was just grab it and bring it in. But again, I said it earlier today on another show, Jeffrey Epstein was involved in the development and funding of Bitcoin. So that tells you all you need to know. He was a clear intelligence asset. So when the intelligence community is involved in creating something and then the mystique's out there and it goes crazy and makes tons of money, yeah, okay. And they just took Iran's money. They took their wallet and just absconded with it. And if, they're going to keep it. So they can do it to Iran. They can do it to you.
So the other question was, the other two questions were the fringe on the flag. If you give credence to that, significance or not.
I do and I don't. And it's funny because I see various presidents, sometimes it has fringe, sometimes it doesn't. And anytime you're in a court, it always has fringe. It's the admiralty law. It's recognition of admiralty law. Does it mean we're necessarily at war? It could, definitely, because you've got the United States peace flag, right? A lot of state nationals use the peace flag.
The reverse colors peace flag, yes. Correct.
And so that's a signal that we're not at war. We have been at war, and we have over 50 national security, national emergencies right now. So, yeah. We're in war. It doesn't matter. We don't see bullets flying over here unless it's cartel activity or drug activity. But and thank God we're not seeing missiles or any of that stuff over here. But we have been at war for a long time. So seeing the fringe or not fringe, I think it's a lot of times misapplied. So it's really hard to kind of put a marker on about that. But I understand why people think that, because I think it goes right back to the early days of trade at sea, right? That was our original trade. Our commerce was done at sea, and so it's a commercial application.
So you like me think that some people just think everything about these signs makes a difference, and I don't think it does in the real world. And the last question there was, so there are still those who think Trump is, aware of all this and slowly moving, just like this X that I sent you. Is he aware of it? And to me, it seems like he's going along with it, not putting it down. And I believe that's what you're saying as well. Is that correct?
You think Trump is going along with this X post?
No, with the idea. So the X post is saying he's getting us out of the admiralty system. We do not see the signs of him doing that. So the first part of the question is he aware of it? Second part is, where does he stand on it?
Well, I see him rushing us into the digital prison. I mean, he talked about biosurveillance when he was on the campaign trail. Palantir is all about biosurveillance. In fact, Palantir is basically running all agency government. He talked about getting rid of agency government, starting with the Department of Education, and he's refunded it. We still have Linda McMahon, who he said, if you do a great job, you'll be out of a job. She's still there. So I don't see the change to restore the republic under this president. And it's, that's what's creating mass division in the MAGA world, by the way, because some people are diehard. No, there's all these moves and counter moves behind the scenes. You know what? Damn it. Our government is supposed to be transparent. Those jerks work for us. Every single last one of them. We are funding it. And by printing this money that we have to, fund the interest on and putting us into debt. So they work for us. How dare they just, claim this, that they get to do things without us knowing. You don't get to operate in the dark. That's not how government works. If it was, then we would have a communist society. But we're not supposed to have that. So a republic is supposed to be very transparent. You know this. We're supposed to be very limited with who's representing us. We have far too many people in there. And this notion that, this is all happening behind the scenes is a bunch of crap. It's because, if Trump came out, Jeffrey, and said, hey, guys, I'm in trouble. This is way bigger than one guy can handle. I know you guys are really cheering me on and blah, blah, blah. But I need you guys to stop paying your taxes. I need you guys to get out there and help defend the border. We had no instruction like that whatsoever. Meanwhile, it's all of us telling each other, maybe you shouldn't be funding this crap. You need to probably get some more ammunitions and guns, and we probably need to help our friends on the border and stand a post. And, you know what I mean? We're starting our own private organizations to end child trafficking and blah, 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 which is what we should be doing. But what the signals that Trump is making are the opposite. So I don't understand that. That doesn't seem like a good warfare strategy. In fact, it's very divisive.
No, he's going along with FISA. He's going on with the new FBI headquarters, larger than the last. He hasn't done anything about Russiagate. In fact, the latest Comey indictment, I saw a bunch of people like Dick Sorter being excited about this. I'm like, I can tell you, having done hundreds of investigations and grand juries and indictments and convictions where I put guys in federal prison for 30 years, that this seashell thing is going nowhere. There are certainly real cases that could be brought against Comey. And there's plenty of, I mean, there's on video evidence with Flynn. I sent the FBI agents to Flynn. And it's just like with Biden. There's plenty of video evidence for real cases. The seashell thing is nothing, and it will not go anywhere. And I can't believe people are getting excited about it. I mean, it looks like serious people getting excited about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just another, bring America first, bring Americans up excited about something and then drop them on their heads. And I don't think we have an election coming up in November, and we still don't have a SAVE Act passed. We don't have machines banned. We don't have our crap together. We're in bad shape, Jeffrey. We're in bad shape.
And by the way, I'll just say again why the seashell thing won't work is Comey's already denied that he did it. He said, I'm walking along the beach and I see it. Okay, well, there's no way to connect. This is just like a dope case which I did hundreds, is I would always ask the Border Patrol referrals, how far was the packs, the burlap packs from the guys you arrested? And so the farther away they were, the more likely it wasn't going to go. Well, did they have burlap particulates on their shoulders because that would show. And then, of course, the 86 can be interpreted many ways in that regard. So,
they just hit me, Jeffrey. I was gone for about 30 seconds. I had to get on my hotspot.
Oh, yeah. It just looks like I was just explaining why it won't go anywhere. But anyway, the other thing, and you've already kind of gotten into this because you're so sharp, is the Iranian economic war is interesting. And I was talking when I guessed it with you that I was actually praising Trump because I've been criticizing Trump and the ever-Trumper cultists who have replaced Trump as their messiah, where Trump can do no wrong and you're not allowed to. We're very upset with me, and I've lost a lot of folks because of that. But I was praising him because he has not put ground troops into what will be a catastrophic situation that cannot win, that cannot be held. And now I see this economic war, this other blockade, it could work. So I'm wondering if you think that cooler and smarter heads have finally prevailed, because what happens with the blockade is the Iranian oil tanks, not the tankers, but the tanks get filled up and they don't have any place to put it. So they then have to shut down the actual pumps of the wells, which becomes a very expensive process and becomes a very unknown process if it will even work again. So there is a timeline that Iran is on now. And, I certainly prefer an economic war such as this to a shooting war where our guys and gals are dying. So to me, it looked smart, but now it looks like they're still preparing for kinetic action. So your thoughts on all of that, please.
Yeah, I really can't imagine a scenario where Trump would want to engage in kinetic action with boots on the ground. When I mean boots on the ground kinetic action. We've bombed all of, how many sites have we hit? How many thousands of sites have we hit in Iran? Again, looking historically back in the early 1900s, the British went down there and discovered oil. Not that it was so hard, it was like on the ground. Pretty much you were stepping in it. And BP went down there and set up, the British Petroleum. That became extremely profitable for the British. They powered their entire navy, never had to pay for fuel for their boats anywhere for years, for decades. That has ended. And that has been incredibly painful for the Brits because they haven't expanded their own resources in the North Sea like they could have. They are still very dependent on getting oil from other sources. And so this separation that we're going through, that they are going through with a piece of their, what they consider to be their property, Iran stands in the middle of a north, south, east, west trade route that's very, very profitable. It goes back to the belt, the Chinese Silk Road, over 1,000 years ago. And the people that migrated across that Silk Road and established the city of London in 1067 and the banking empire that's there. So this is a long storied history for these people, and they're finally recognizing that freedom lovers around the world are rebelling and are getting rid of their monarchy and the dystopian tyranny that has been governing them for centuries. And America's late to the party. We're a very young country, right? We're not quite as young as some of the Middle East countries that are very synthetic, in the Saudi Arabia and all those countries, Oman, etc. But the fact is, people don't want to be part of somebody else's empire. They want to be free on their own. And by severing and driving Iran into the ground, you are starving the IRGC, which, if you think about it, you had the mullahs, you have the IRGC, and then you have the Iranian people. They're not the same. And so the Iranian people love Americans. They want to be free. It's the IRGC and the mullahs that are a nightmare. We have wiped out a lot of the leadership, and they keep, like mushrooms, popping up new ones, but they're not well read into. They don't have the skills necessary. And they're starting to lose that battle. And the economic punishing that's going on is going to separate them even more so. It's just a matter of, can we, we have managed to keep Britain out of it. Britain didn't really want to get involved, and they wouldn't even let us launch from there in the beginning. I think there have been some concessions since then. But again, we're looking at pulling up stakes everywhere. We've looking at leaving and abandoning our military apparatus in the Middle East. And of course, NATO there's now talks about, well, what the hell are we doing in Germany? Let's get out. I mean, these are all these conversations now, and it's like, about time. Why are we over in all these places? And we've been doing it at the behest of the bankers, which are run out of the city of London. So, I think, interestingly enough, I do believe that even maybe the crown has been somewhat held captive by the city of London in some aspects. Because remember, the city of London is connected to the MI6, Mossad, and all of that. And they had dirt on everybody. And don't you know, they probably had dirt on Charles. So they've been using the weaponization of information warfare on these people for a long time, getting them to do what they needed to do. So, Epstein is a big boomerang in all of this. It's all connected. It's all connected.
But so my question is Trump now pursuing, well, you've said that you don't see Trump putting troops on the ground, even though all the assets are over there.
I think it would be incredibly stupid if he did it.
Well, no, I agree it would be stupid, but he spent, billions getting everybody over there. The whole force is almost over there.
Well, and when
you move the force into place, it's hard not to then use it. But I'm heartened that he hasn't, and I'm heartened that he is pursuing this economic warfare strategy, which works. Which is, if the containers fill up and you got to shut the wells down, then that really hits him. But is he going to then hit the wells? They're talking about moving specialized missile systems in as well. And of course, there's still so much pressure from Netanyahu and Mossad and Likud to continue this. Because again, if he stops it, then Netanyahu isn't a commander in chief. He's not a wartime president. Then his corruption trial goes on.
Right. But just remember who Likud and Benjamin Netanyahu are. They're the same people, the same demographic that created the city of London. Yes. It's the same. It's the same. And really, the Israeli government, and the reason they had such a rush to pay off social media influencers all over X and everywhere else. I am not one of them. I don't take any money from these people. But is the fact that they want to be able to say, oh, if you don't support Israel, you're an anti-Semite. No, that's not true at all. I don't support the nation state government of Israel. I love the Israeli people. I have lots of Israeli friends. But sure. They are not you. The government of Israel and the Israeli people are not the same. They're any more than the sickness in the United States government represents Americans. We're totally opposite. So this is the farce. This is the weaponization, MK Ultra, that has been brainwashed into us, and we just didn't know because, frankly, the Schofield Bible and organized religion has been part of all of this weaponization of information to get us to believe that we owe Israel something. Well, they were manufactured in 1948. So
Exactly. And
by the very people that come out of the city of London, Lord Rothschild. So
and
the
I
Rothschild
will be on Sunday. My sermon is going to be about debunking Zionism via the Torah. So I'm going to show how. So anybody wants that, ChristChaplaincy.com, 9 a.m. Arizona time, live, or you can get it later. But I'll go right through the Torah of how the Greater Israel is a false reading of Torah. I've already talked about how Christian Zionists have changed, as you said, through Schofield and Darby in detail, Cruz and Huckabee, where they substitute Israel for you, changing scripture, which is a sin for any Christian. But on Sunday, I'm going to talk about how Jewish Zionism, just Torah, is false as well. And I'm going to do it through Torah. But anyway.
That's awesome. At least you're not reading the Talmud. For a second, I thought you were going to say you were going to go through the Talmud. I was like, no.
No, rabbinical Talmudism is anti-Christic and satanic, and it's a total mess. No, I want to move on to DOJ's indicted Sinaloa governor and many members of that, and that's really, personally important to me, but also very significant, I think, for the nation, and because I support Trump's cartel wars and designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That's why I was kind of dual credentialed as a DEA special agent and a DIA intelligence officer, because that's back in the war on drugs, and everybody was chasing the money, including the DOD. But DOJ, and he's not in custody in Mexico, but DOJ has indicted the governor of Sinaloa, and that is Ruben Rocha Moya, who's been governor since 2021 in Sinaloa. Sinaloa is a state, and and if you don't know, this is how I become for the audience, I became a whistleblower, because I was extraditing the first Mexican cartel leader, which was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, which was Miguel Caro Quintero, brother of Rafael. Rafael tortured and murdered our agent Kika Camarena. I uncovered the DEA's deal with the Sinaloa cartel, which is actually in court. And they actually even refer to that case. They're referring to Zambada, the Zambada case in here. But it's really interesting because they're saying one defendant faces more, because it's not just the governor, it's a dozen government officials, state government officials, that are accused of working with the cartels. One defendant faces more. Juanito Valenzuela Milian is a former high-level commander in the Culiacan Municipal Police. And so when I was down there doing cross-border operations, which were the most dangerous things I've ever done, of a lot of dangerous things, cross-border with just my gun under my shirt, my pistol, because we weren't supposed to, but we carried, because we were not going to end up like Kiki. And the thing was, don't get taken. We were with the federales, the feos, but there's the municipales you got to watch for, and there's the federales. So you're really watching everybody at the same time. And they're watching each other, and they're watching you. But anyway, he was a Culiacan Municipal Police who directly assisted the Sinaloa cartel with the kidnapping and murdering of its enemies, including a DEA source, that means a confidential informant, and his relatives. And this, to me, because along with Kiki being tortured and murdered, his informant was as well. A lot of people don't know that, but there were fingernail markings on the coffin. It was recorded. It was a horrible, slow torture to death, for those who don't know. And it looks like they were doing this again. So it looks like, to me, that the DOJ is actually doing something, because of the echoes of Kiki here. Milan faces 5 5 charges in total, including the 3 counts assigned to the defendants, plus 2 additional counts, kidnapping, resulting in death. And so this, to me, this looks optimistic, although, I'm pretty cynical at this point. But I just wondered, because you have been on the border much more recently than I have. I don't go down there anymore. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Well, to me, it's incredibly encouraging that they are actually reaching across the border, because, as you know, going back into Operation Wide Receiver, which was the predecessor to Operation Fast and Furious, went from George Bush to Obama and Eric Holder, trafficking weapons across the border to arm the cartels, and to also traffic these weapons around the world, over into the Middle East, including weapons that were found in Benghazi from Fast and Furious operations, where they stole weapons out of a store in Las Vegas, the National Survival Store, for instance. Anyhow, to see that we're actually, first of all, declaring that these are foreign terrorist organizations, SINALOA is huge, and it should have happened a long time ago, frankly. But that's okay. Same with MS-13 and others. Is that we're finally, sort of closing the loop here a little bit. I mean, there's still thousands and thousands of weapons, hundreds of thousands. Some say millions of weapons went over the border that are buried. And, there was talk that perhaps, they were going to, when people had these caravans, that they were going to go find weapons, rush the border with guns. Thank God that didn't happen, because that could have been really scary. But, to see that we are not walking away from this, and it looks like we're coming back around to close the loop of Operation Fast and Furious, and the fact that it's pretty well known that Hillary Clinton and the Clintons used gangs like MS-13 to do some of their dirty work, right? There's conjecture that Rich was murdered by Rosenstein's directive to MS-13. That is some of the rumors that are circulating around DC. I don't know if you've heard that one, but I've heard it from some people that would know. I'll just leave it at that. So that's really quite explosive when you think about it. So to have this administration say, we're not giving these cartels any sort of credence, and we're going to go after them. We're going for the top layer. Yeah, bring it on. I mean, this is the kind of closure people want to see. I had Brian Terry brothers here at my house for dinner a few months ago. Kent Terry and Wesley Felix from the National Survival Store were at my house, as they had spent several days in front of Mar-a-Lago, basically holding up signs saying, when are we going to get restitution for this? When is Brian Terry, the famous BORTAC agent who was killed by a Fast and Furious weapon? And one person was badged in with three different agencies: DEA, ATF, FBI. So the president, when Brian Terry, right?
Those are ghost agents that can change identity. So they might be CIA, they might be something else. Again, you want to see that in a movie. Val Kilmer's Spartan is a real good example of that, where the president is trafficking his own daughter. But yeah, I deployed with BORTAC. I knew the folks who carried him out of the canyon. And of course, I did some work with the Terry family long ago, but you've done it much more recently. But yeah, I think that's good to hear. I think also the unfortunate deaths of the 2 CIA officers in Mexico hitting the lab also is a surprising sign, because it turns out that Victor Bareillas was the DEA agent investigating the torture and murder of Kiki Camarena, and he found out Felix Rodriguez, longtime CIA officer, part of the Cuban operations, was there when Kiki was being killed, which has always been denied, and he's kind of a bigwig there. So to see that there were a couple CIA intelligence officers, and they were probably tactical agent handlers or maybe ground branch guys, because they were on the ground, killed, is surprising, but it is and tragic. But it looks like good news, because that you can always tell who's doing good work, because they kill them, just like those 2 FBI agents who were looking at child trafficking in Florida.
Right.
They were killed. You didn't hear hardly anything about that from the FBI. You didn't hear them praised or anything. Looks like the FBI set them up as well. But in this instance,
right.
But any thoughts on that?
Any thoughts on the FBI?
Well, on the CIA first, then we'll get to
sorry,
the FBI.
repeat.
So the CIA officers that
On
were
the
killed
CIA?
recently, yeah, the CIA officers were. I mean, you agree with me that they were likely doing real work for a change.
For a change, yeah. And again, this is a reflection of what this administration is doing, and in some instances not doing. But in this instance, look, I'm going to give credit to Tulsi Gabbard, because her presence in ODNI has put enormous pressure on all these intelligence agencies. John, Ratcliffe, frankly, I don't even know how he ended the back of the CIA, unless it's just to expose him, because he didn't deliver in the last Trump administration. He sat on that report that should have been due long before January 6th and came out after the fact. And hence we had January 6th, had his report on the intelligence of what happened during the election of 2020 come out in a timely fashion. G6 wouldn't have happened. So the fact that he's sitting over at the CIA is just another indication that, we still have rats circulating in the barn. But Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, has done a lot to probably ferret out some of the bad people. And I don't care what people say about Joe Kent. I like him. I think he's a hero for what he has stood up and said on certain instances. And he wasn't the leaker that was happening over there.
So I had Joe on the show. I was in the predecessor Tier 1 Special Missions unit that he was part of. They don't talk about that. They talk about a Special Forces time. They jump to a CI time. There's a big time in between where this is the lowest profile Tier 1 unit. I know it very well.
Yeah.
That Joe Kent would be a leaker from his career is just ludicrous. No, he is a hero warrior, and he did it very admirably. He's still doing it very admirably. I'm trying to get him back on. But yeah, let's segue. I want to go to the Mossad stuff too, but let's segue to the two FBI agents killed, because I don't know about that much. I would have loved to have followed up on that, but they were investigating child trafficking, and I think that the FBI or CIA or somebody, deep state, had them set up by an informant or something to be killed, because the FBI, as far as I know, didn't come out and make them heroes and really tell their story, which is not what the FBI does. When the FBI, the FBI shows up and takes over. Well, the Bonnie and Clyde one is the perfect example. That's kind of when it started. Two old Texas Rangers end Bonnie and Clyde, but who gets the credit is the fledgling FBI. But yeah, if you know something about that, I'd love to hear about it.
Well, these guys were, I think you're talking about the two FBI agents that were ones that were killed in February, Mexico.
They were killed. Yeah, they were killed. No, they were killed in, they were doing some kind of trailer search in Florida a couple of years back, and they were killed, and there was no further publicity about them.
Well, I'm not familiar with that story, but what I could what I would sort of assume here, I hate to use that word, but what I would extrapolate from that is, the work that we're doing in child trafficking when it comes to CPS is incredibly dangerous. And it's so dangerous that, CPS saw to it to make sure that one of our attorneys that works with us in our organization and our nonprofit had his bar license stripped because we've got lawsuits in federal cases that involve children that were taken without due process. And it was proven the families have been released of this, but yet we're still filing the lawsuits. And this attorney has he's clean as a whistle, but the level of which the government is pursuing him is absolutely extraordinary. Peter Tickton's representing our attorney in this case to get his bar license back. But I digress. So we're talking about wholesale. We're talking about an industry the federal government funds to the tune of $85 billion a year at last year's numbers. $85 billion is a massive industry. And you have law enforcement, you have judges, you have guardian ad litems, you have social workers, the entire agency of CPS, whether it's Department of Children and Families, whatever the acronym is in your state and the federal level. We're talking about a lot of money in the parasitic organizations that thrive on that. So when you're a threat to that, and if you're an FBI agent that's one of the good guys that's going after to find children that are being trafficked, you bet your life it wouldn't shock me to find out that they're getting, put into the dirt, because this industry can't afford to have people expose them. It's too late, and for these folks, I think, frankly, the FBI folks, it's terrible that would happen. But the same token, So many people are awake to this now. Just go over Facebook, go over X, go over Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Everybody's talking about it. There are literally tens of thousands, if hundreds of thousands of accounts out there talking about what's going on with child trafficking as it relates to government funding through CPS. So the fact you had a couple of good FBI agents, yeah, it's terrible. But I wouldn't shock me at all to know they were put into the ground by the very people who are supposed to be on our side, and they're not.
Amen. So I know you had my Team America Iowa leader on, Steve Corey, and you've made contact. Well, let's talk about, and thank you for doing that. But let's talk about your organization and your work. Please put that out.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that opportunity. American Made Foundation, we have two. We have the foundation, which is our C3, and we have American Made Action, which is our C4. So our foundation is for education, outreach, and we put out books. In fact, we have our book right here. Pick it up. This is one of the books we do. It's called CPS, CPS Pipeline, State Sanctioned Kidnapping. We also did a documentary called CPS, State Sanctioned Kidnapping as well. We give you incredible information about what the system is doing, how it's doing it. And we also have a bonus chapter in here it's a very small little book. It's not very hard to read. You could probably read it in an afternoon. Myself, Maureen Steele, and our attorney, Christopher Burns, all contribute in this book. Forward by General Michael Flynn in the book, just so I should get that out there because he wrote a beautiful forward for us. But this is what we're doing, is to educate the population about how you can protect yourself from Child Protective Services, because they will come after you if they think they can extort you and they think they can traffic your children. It's all about the Benjamins, all about the money. Our action arm is leveling federal lawsuits. We've written legislation that will be adapted by all 50 states. We're working with Moms for America. We started the Family First Coalition, and we're already engaged with Washington, D.C. at the federal level so that we can literally change the legislation and make it incredibly difficult to remove children from homes. Right now, it's hearsay that removes little Susie or little Johnny. Tomorrow, once our legislation has been passed, it's going to be incredibly difficult. They're going to have to literally meet what an exigent circumstance is. Law enforcement will have to be engaged, not just somebody with a clipboard that shows up. You've got judges that have to sign off on it, but you have to have a real circumstance, not hearsay. And that's what we're battling today, is all the lack of due process and everything around this entire institution. If we do that, I think we can reduce the amount of children that are being taken by 95%. Once you reduce the workload, the money from the federal government has to be reduced by the equivalent amount. So $81 billion, less than 95% is what will be left to inject into the system. We're really pushing and working with other organizations on the private side, because we think the private, privacy, the public can do a better job than the state. And so we're, working with churches through organizations like America's Futures, Remnant Ministries, and others out there that are doing this on the ground now. And they're trusted, places for children to go. And our organization is actually right now in the midst of finding and securing property in Florida to rescue women who've been satanically ritually abused or trafficked, either by cartels or otherwise, for women 18 to 24. So that's what we're doing. We're putting our money where our mouth is, because we believe it's so incredibly important. And we're going to create this closed looped system where we have rescuing, we're working with door kickers, we have education and documentaries and books, and we also have legislation and lawfare. So all of this being done on the private and taking it out of the government system, I think is going to be massively important.
And so my audience understands, this is why Tuesday's guest was Kathy O'Brien,
yes,
who was trafficked from a child, to give you context for what Ann's saying now. And what Ann's setting up is a parallel, I think, from the way the federal system is, because it's a whole bunch of organizations, the Catholic charities, it's the Lutheran societies, it's the Hebrew immigration societies, all these so-called religious organizations that are getting all this money too. So you've got a lot of enemies arrayed against you. I wonder if it would be possible for us to get do kind of a panel thing sometime of
let's do it. I'd love it. We'll bring Maureen Steele in. She's a paralegal. She's a constitutional expert. She helps draft a lot of these lawsuits that we have going on. We're working with Pacific Justice Institute and other major, we've got a United Law Coalition of thousands of attorneys across the country that are, doing this sort of work. Right now, we are, press release just went out with PJI. We were the lead attorney on it until they disbarred Chris. So Peter Tickton is now working with Chris, and we have working with Pacific Justice Institute on the child, Emerson Macklin. He is the little boy whose mother was killed by ICE in Minnesota. And the grandfather wants to take custody of the little boy. He's the next known relative of the little boy. His father died when he committed suicide upon learning that his wife was gay and was leaving him for another woman. So the little boy lost his father 2 years ago, and then he lost his mother a few months ago when she was shot and killed with ICE. And so the grandfather, who he knows and loves, is trying to, basically take custody, and it's we're engaged in that as well. So we're very busy trying to do right by the right, for the right reasons. And it's an exciting time to be in this space, because I think it's about time, Jeffrey. You and I have reported on a lot of heinous things over the years, and I just felt like I needed to get action, get involved and solve problems instead of talking about them. So this is my give back, and I love what I'm doing.
No, it's so important, because you get into that CPS system and the orphanage system, and you just go from abuser to abuser. And then you can also come of age, and you got nobody. In fact, I'm gonna pan up there a little bit. I got this a while back. That's from the orphanage I came out of.
Yeah.
Which I'm so blessed to have come out of, to have been adopted, because there are people now in that organization that don't come out of it. It's no longer called St. Joseph's Orphanage, but very, very personal matter to me of how I was blessed and saved from the very beginning. So yeah, we will do that for sure. That's really good. Amazing work. Let me move in finally to the ex-MOSSAD chief that is saying that Israel is holocausting the Palestinians. And I think these are extraordinary statements of extreme importance from an evidently very brave man, because again, there are many Israelis, including Orthodox Jews, that are against Zionism, that are against the nation state of Israel, that it should not be named that, for example. But he's admitting that Israelis are committing the same sins committed against them in World War II. And it's racist, because it's saying the Palestinians are lesser people. It's really racist for Zionists, because everybody is a lesser person, goyim, to Zionists, and predicting it will instigate another October 7th. And of course, October 7th was a stand down. General Flynn came on my old Bright Young TV show and confirmed that. And I can't even imagine, as former CIA director, saying something like this. But this is Tamir Pardo, who served as director of Mossad from 2011 to 2016, not very long ago, saying that the Palestinian villages affected by the ongoing settler attacks and atrocities are essentially the other part of the holocausting of the Palestinians. And again, that's not me saying that. This is an Israeli saying that. That's the former head of Mossad is coming out and saying that. For more intelligence and proof of what is happening, and he says this is and he also phrases it in an important way. This is an existential threat to the state of Israel, because he's saying this will engender another October 7th. Now, of course, I believe that October 7th was planned and instigated and funded by Israel. It's not that atrocities and terrible things didn't happen and that Hamas didn't do them, but that Israel, the government, knew about it. They did a 7-hour stand down, and in part they did kill some of their own. They've admitted that with their the helos hitting the rave party. They did admit that. So I just wanted to get your take on that, because again, I thought this was extremely significant and not getting a lot of play in the mainstream intelligence controlled media.
Exactly. I was like, did you expect it to? I mean, because our intelligence is controlled by the same people that's controlling Mossad. It's all the same MI6, Mossad, CIA. There's no daylight between those organizations. And yeah, I'm glad General Flynn came on your show and said that, because it needed to be said. There's no way I mean, even Charlie Kirk questioned it, and shortly thereafter, he was no longer. So the fact that you have a country where the kids grow up and are immediately put into minimally a year's service in the IDF. They've got to carry a gun at 18 years old. They're all in the military. Should tell you that they're a very heavily armed society. They're all well-heeled in how to defend themselves. And for 7 hours, they're being assaulted as if and people are being slaughtered. You're telling me that nobody knew this was going on? Come on, that's such BS. Nobody believes that.
The QRF for that border is 3 to 5 minutes.
Right.
And also the unit was female Israeli soldiers did the surveillance. There's the records of them warning higher about it for a year previous. I mean, you got hang gliders coming over slow. You got everybody amassing at the border, practicing at the border. And we're supposed to believe that they did not notice that. But the interesting thing is, the first people that got taken, kidnapped, and killed were the female surveillance unit that made the complaint. So they're kind of eliminating the initial witnesses as well.
Correct. Yeah, I think the whole thing is a sham show. I think Bibi Netanyahu's jig is up. You're absolutely right. He wants to drag this out as long as possible, because if he doesn't, if it's all said and done, then he's facing his own criminality. And that's something he just simply isn't going to do. He just isn't. He just isn't going to do it. So it's going to be a matter of the United States has got to finally withdraw and say, you know what, we're not going to defend Israel anymore. We're going to let you guys sort your stuff out. And we're going to be pulling up out of the Middle East at some point. I hope sooner than later, putting all these troops on the ground. Who the hell knows? But maybe those troops are there to really help the Iranian people who want to rise up. It seems to me that we've done a lot of damage to the IRGC and to their ability to continue to attack. Not to say they are not wily coyotes and will continue to be sort of like we were in the American Revolutionary times, just sort of ragtag fugitive fleet. But that being said, if the people rise up and make it very painful for the IRGC, hopefully that we are there to support the people. That would be my hope, but not to go in and take on a hand-to-hand combat with the IRGC, not based on the geographic nature of how Iran is situated. It's very difficult. It's a very mountainous, terrain, and it's not exactly an easy terrain in which to invade. So,
well,
I know I digress there.
No. So, we did do successful regime change. I've had on the show, there's the signed bottle of Horse Soldier by retired Sergeant Major Vince McKellar.
Wow.
And I've had Will Cummings on. Those are the original Horse Soldiers from the not so good movie 12 Strong, from their own book, Swords of Lightning, which is better. But that was very successful regime change by no more than 200 Green Berets. The first was ODA 595. They didn't lose anybody. They worked with the generals whose names I'm forgetting. He was 40 years preparing for this, so he was perfectly. But there was regime change almost instantly, and that war was won and over. And then Big Army, then Delta wants to come in, and 6 wants to come in. Then you get Roberts Ridge, and Slavinsky and Chapman and all of that. So it can be done, and it can be done right, and it was done right. But then everything, everything continues to grow into other wars that we don't need. But as far as the populace, in my opinion, as a former intelligence officer for Special Forces, because this is their lane, unconventional warfare, or now it's called irregular warfare. Just had a young retired Green Beret on. He corrected me. It's no longer anyway. Yes, I think the Iranian people were ripe for regime change, but the first thing doing is killing their spiritual leader, whom they may not have thought much of, had cancer. Is that going to engender you to the United? Of course not. It's the worst thing you could do. And then as you continue to kill all the diplomats and kill everybody else, the kind of neutral, younger Iranian people who weren't really concerned or involved, or maybe didn't even like him, is like, hey, stop killing our guys. And I think that has really increased. I think we've done everything against, completely wrong, where the horse soldiers did everything right, and lived with him and rode with him. I think we've done everything wrong. So I don't. And then of course, Trump had the CIA give the guns to the Kurds, and we just betrayed the Kurds, and the Kurds kept the guns for themselves and didn't get them to the Iranian people. So I don't think the boots on the ground that we need for regime change is going to happen through the Iranian people now. But that's just my 2 cents there. But
listen, I value your 2 cents more than mine. You have more experience in combat than I do by a long shot.
But what are your comments on this former Mossad chief saying what he's saying? I think this continues to weaken. I think
he's truthful. Why? Listen, it's a dangerous thing to go out there and say it, right? So why would he go out there and say it and put himself in harm's way if it wasn't true? I mean, does he just want the spotlight for 15 minutes? He's obsessed with that. I don't think so. I don't think these people are. I think he is telling the truth, and I think he's come to terms with the Israeli government and the Israeli people are not the same, and he realizes he's wants to make sure he's making it right. I applaud the guy, frankly.
Yeah, I think there's because he said my mother's a Holocaust survivor. Should be ashamed of this. I think we're seeing this same in Israel. It's very hard because Israel's so censored, by the way. So is America. But I think there's a growing resistance to all of this, just like there's a growing intergenerational younger Christian resistance to in America to American Christian Zionism, and the same thing in Israel to Jewish Zionism, and it's almost paralleling each other. And if the communication walls came down, because both are censoring heavily, I think we'd be surprised at the vehemence and magnitude of that movement. What say you?
Oh my gosh, I think it would be incredible if the walls came down and we understood just how suppressed all of us have been. Because I equate all of this, Jeffrey, to we're all being organized, architected, censored, etc., by the same machine, and that machine comes directly. It's funded directly out of the City of London, the BIS, which is powering the machine for big pharma, big ag, big tech, big war, etc., etc. And I said Israel has been sort of the delivery vehicle for a lot of this. Not the people, the government, and how dare we? Everything is going to come back to, well, you're insulting Israel, you're a racist, you're a anti-Semite, whatever. So I think it's I think the amount of people inside Israel that we're going to find out have feel the same as we do about the censorship and about their government the way we feel about ours. I think we're going to be shocked in a good way.
Yeah, they've never been exposed the good news is I think they've never been as exposed as they are now. Correct.
We've never seen the nation state government of Israel for what it is as we have right now. And it's bare bones. And to some effect, I think, Trump may be allowing himself to be used and abused openly so we can see it and go, what the hell is going on here? Like, what are you doing? There may be some psyop to some of this. But the psyop, where the psyop ends and our safety begins, that line we shouldn't be extended into our safety. And so far we haven't had something horrific happen here. I thought for sure by now we would have some sort of heinous, false flag, like real big false flag attack. And they try and say, oh, it was Iran or whatever, but it wasn't. We haven't had that yet. So I'm not sure how they're maneuvering this. Maybe ICE is doing a better job than we think and they're working with special force. I have no idea, but we have been very blessed so far. And to that, I'm incredibly grateful, because I don't want to see anything bad happen to anybody anywhere, but especially right here in our country.
Well, I think because of the cartel, with the military and special ops involving themselves in the cartel wars, I think that's really made a difference of infiltration of hitters. And if they're not if they're not allowed by the FBI and brought in by the CIA, there's no real soil for them to really grow on, is what I think there. But I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I actually have to get going here. I've got somewhere
Okay.
to be in about 6 minutes.
Oh,
Jeffrey.
well, I'm sorry. Well, thank you so much. I want to. What's the website? What's the best place to see all of your organization, your work, and everything? Where do you want people to follow you?
Sure. You can go to AmericanMadeFoundation.org or myself and Vandersteel.com. Either one. Either one
Excellent.
gets you to the work that we're doing, and it is. I think it's very important work because again, this isn't. We can't rely on there's nobody coming to save us. It's us that's saving us, and so we've got to disable and dismantle and just mothball these agencies, particularly Child Protective Services, because what they do to children is heinous, truly is heinous, and families.
Well, I'm sorry to keep you for so long, but it was fascinating.
Oh.
Really, me a great deal. I got more questions for you, but I'll ask you that offline. But thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh, Jeffrey, always a pleasure to see you. And thank you so much for your time, and I was glad I was able to carry the show for about 2 minutes until you pop back in.
Yeah. Well, they're trying hard.
Thank much you. Love to you. Much love. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. There's the great Ann Vandersteel. Great to have her on. Yeah, they are really, really coming after this show. The other time, the computer just shut down. And then this time, again, the same thing happened. Really unusual. So they clearly don't like what they're saying. So please like, share, and subscribe on X, Rumble. You can even find me on YouTube, although I'm going to have a new channel coming up shortly. And if you can, and if you want to, you can do jeffreyprather.locals.com for $9 a month or $90 a year. Or you can go to patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather at the $5, $15, or $25 level. I'd appreciate the support there. Follow Ann for sure. This Sunday, ChristChaplaincy.com. I will be live debunking Jewish Zionism. I've already debunked American Christian Zionism. As a Christian chaplain, I used the New Testament, Yeshua, Jesus' own words, to debunk American Christian Zionism. This Sunday, I will use the Torah, the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, to debunk Jewish Zionism as well. So you're welcome to join me there. If you can't join me, all that stuff is recorded as well, ChristChaplaincy.com. Hope to see you. If you got on GoToMeeting, we can actually have a conversation. If you're on Facebook or something, we can have a chat. And again, we put in the chat some of the places where you can work on American state nationals getting out of the beast system. So all of that stuff is really important. And thank you. And I will see you guys on Sunday. Remember to slip your secular silo. Scientism isn't sly. It's stupid. Reproductive rape rights are ridiculous, but it is the genius of generational curses. Raped becomes mother, who becomes murderer, co-conspirator in sin and death. Meanwhile, the demon sucks the souls of the rapist, raped, and murder. And I speak as a product born of rape. Silent screams or pain felt is irrelevant. Intentional harm of innocence is evil, always. God's first commandment was, be fruitful and multiply. That doesn't happen with homosexuals and lesbians. Abortion is straight satanic script. Sacrifice your babies, then die off. Gen Z is missing a third of themselves. Infanticide is not rare. It is routine, industrialized, institutionalized, and intellectualized. Silicon Valley dreams of immortality while simultaneously sabotaging their own seed. U.S. replacement rate is 2 to 1, but America's at 1 to 6. The math is mass murder. The answer, extinction. The empty classrooms and nurseries aren't a mystery. They are the receipts. My body, my choice is a stupid psyop for feeble-minded females. What about the most innocent, most defenseless baby's body? What of their choice? Would they choose to be chopped up, sucked out, and flushed down? Would you? Fetus means bringing forth of life. Abortion means to end life. Our dead get graves, but our unborn are simply deleted, as if they never were. But their souls still are. For every murdered baby, 1,000 angels weep. But in hell, 1,000,000 demons cheer. There is one way out of the pit, Yeshua. Repent, confess, and ask pardon. Or refuse, and in death, join the millions. Hope to see you on Sunday, ChristChaplaincy.com.